Speaking of the World Wide Web, it's what allows us to link up with our friend Anthony Dimarco, our friend and our coworker Anthony Dimarco. Welcome to the Daily Faceoff team, Anthony. How excited are you to get rolling next year?
Very much so. I'm finally able to say I'm not crossing enemy lines when I join you guys. So that's a kind of a cool thing. But looking forward to doing this today and many more appearances this season, hopefully.
Absolutely. Maybe just tell people what to expect from you in your role at Daily Faceoff and what you'll be bringing to the site.
So yeah, mostly it will be league-wide content, but if you follow me for any extended period of time, you know that I kind of have a vested interest with the Flyers, but trying to broaden my horizons there. Obviously, I'm based out of Montreal, so going to take more of an interest in that market. Just tackle all and any type of storyline throughout the entire NHL. But I will say that you should expect a lot of Flyers heavy content here and there just because the inroads I have with that organization and the following that I've built up in the market. But again, like I said, hoping to broaden my horizons throughout the league.
Well, that is exactly what we're going to do today then. So let's get into it. The Philadelphia Flyers, their big offseason move is just simply the fact that Matvei Michkov is coming over. And when you look at the way last season finished, obviously it was with them on the outside looking in of the Stanley Cup playoff picture, but not by as many as what a lot of outsiders projected. Is just getting Michkov in that lineup enough to give them a push over the likes of Pittsburgh, Detroit, and then another playoff team? Or was there more to their offseason than just getting Michkov? Just give me a little breakdown of how you think he's going to fit in and how this Flyers team will look come training camp.
Well, I think he's going to fit in perfectly because if you look at their team up front, they basically swapped out Cam Atkinson for Matvei Michkov. And I think anyone would say that that is a massive, massive upgrade. And Matvei Michkov presumably is going to start on one of the top two lines. I would imagine he's probably going to start alongside Sean Couturier almost by default because they have no other centers, although Morgan Frost could be argued as a better option. But at least for the first time in a long time, you can look at this Flyers top six and say, like, there's a framework being laid out here, at least for the foreseeable future, specifically with the wings, with Konechny signed long-term, Tippett signed long-term, Michkov now here, as in a lot of ways the face of the franchise, maybe a bit premature to say, and Tyson Foerster having a very impressive rookie year. You kind of have an outlook of what this team's going to look like for the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that it will significantly improve them. How much, I'm not sure, because you look at the Eastern Conference, there's a ton of parity there. You look at the teams that are going to be right back in that bubble mix that are going to be looking to get over the hump, the Detroits, the Buffaloes, the Ottawas. Montreal just made a big acquisition with Patrick Laine. So I'm not sure if it's enough to get into the playoffs just because of how clustered it is in that the right around the 7, 8, 9, 10 spots in the East. But I certainly think they'll be right back in there and they won't hit such a wall late in the season offensively with Michkov coming over.
The team that wins the offseason rarely ever goes on and wins the Stanley Cup. And I think there's maybe a little bit of that going on in the East right now where we've seen Washington Stanley Cup odds really shoot up. We've seen New Jersey finished with 81 points last year. And I think our friends at Bet365 have them at like 4th on the ranking for Stanley Cup odds. Like, again, the game's not played or won on paper. So maybe I'll ask, out of those teams that had busy off seasons, maybe we can loop Montreal in there, but I still think they're a bit too further back. But the main ones are kind of the Devils and the Capitals, I guess. Is there one of those that you're not buying on next year? You're scoffing at the hype, so to speak?
Well, like the Washington Capitals are certainly better. I like the additions they made. There's not a single move that I scoffed at. But do I think it moves the needle in any capacity? Not really. And I think it was our buddy Frank Cervalli who said that the race for the 8th seed in the East last year was a pillow fight. It was who was going to suck the least. And Washington evidently was the team who sucked the least. The Flyers sucked a lot. The Red Wings sucked a lot. They all sucked, but one team that sucked got in. Just because you get Pierre-Luc Dubois and you trade for Jacob Chychrun, you make some changes in your goaltending with your goaltending, I think they're better, but I don't think that they were a playoff caliber team to begin with. So I'm not really sold on what Washington did in the way of being a playoff team. Are they better than what they were last year? Yes. Did they get in last year? Yeah, but they also got really kind of embarrassed by the New York Rangers. And I think in a conventional year where you have teams playing to their capabilities, in that playoff race leading up to the end of the season, we don't see Washington in. So while I like their moves and they are objectively a better team, I'm not really buying into them being like all of the sudden like one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference.
I'm with you. Like, I look at that forward group and I see a lot of pieces I like, but not a lot of pieces I love. Like Ovi. Okay, sure. You can pencil in Ovi for probably 35 to 40 goals again this year because that's what Ovi does. But gone are the days of penciling in Ovi for 55 goals, right? And Dylan Strome, I like him. Don't like him as a top line center. Pierre-Luc Dubois, that's a risk. Tom Wilson, I like him, but I don't like him as a top line winger. And you can almost just say that everywhere you go down the lineup where it's like, I like this guy, but I don't think he's a driver. And like the blue line could be great. Absolutely. Yeah. And with goaltending, Lindgren and Logan Thompson now, like they'll be fine there, but you got to score goals at the end of the day. And outside of Ovi, I'm not sure where their goals are going to come from. With New Jersey, I think that there it's easier to see a path of like Markstrom and Allen is going to be a very, where'd Anthony go? There he is. Allen's going to be a very good duo. A healthy Jack Hughes is going to help. I buy a little bit harder on New Jersey. One more for you, and Liam, if you got anything on the Metro, feel free. But who do you view as the best team in this division still? Is it just the Rangers? They won the division last year. Carolina didn't have a busy offseason, and they lost Teravainen. Like, who is the best team still in this div?
There's a lot of, I guess, right answers, but I picked New Jersey last year to go to the Cup final. Obviously, that blew up in my face. But I think New Jersey, honestly, because you're banking on the health of Jack Hughes. And as a former fantasy owner of Jack Hughes, I hate Jack Hughes right now. I'm kidding, obviously. But if Jack Hughes can stay healthy, I think he proved to be a top 10 center in the NHL. And they really reconfigured that blue line. You bring in Brett Pesce. You're getting back a healthy Dougie Hamilton. You have another year of Luke Hughes. You have another year of Simon Nemec. I like how that blue line is structured. Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton 2 seasons ago was one of the best top pairs in the NHL. Now you have a Luke Hughes who can play with a seasoned veteran like Brett Pesce. You bring in, I think they brought in Brendan Dillon as well, right? From the Winnipeg Jets. He's an ideal partner on that third pair for Simon Nemec. You completely overhaul the blue line, or not the blue line, the goaltending with Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen. I love that goaltending duo. You really not only get a starter, but you get a guy who can be kind of like that 1B in a pinch, be a starter for a run of games in Allen. And up front, I love that forward group. In terms of skill, I think that you could stand to add some more snarl, some sandpaper, but those are pieces you could get towards the trade deadline, like we saw with the Vegas Golden Knights adding a Barbashev, or the Lightning a few years ago, or several years where they always seem to add sandpaper. But I think the framework of the Devils is there for a cup contender, right down the middle with Hughes, Hischier, and Eric Haula. I love what they did on the blue line with the ads of Pesce and Brendan Dillon to pair with their young defensemen, and obviously overhauling what's going on in the crease. So I really like the New Jersey Devils as the best team right now. And I think that they would have had a chance to be that last season had they just got NHL adequate goaltending.
What are your expectations for the Penguins this season? Ooh. They are a different kind of team, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, different is a very nice way to put it. I mean, color me, I guess, not surprised that I'm not cheering in the streets for the Kevin Hayes acquisition. I think you're kind of treading water with the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. I mean, they bring in Cody Glass, who I guess is a buy low option. I mean, I think his potential has kind of run its course. I think he is kind of what he is, but hey, why not take a chance on him? Crosby is Crosby. Malkin is Malkin. You still have Brian Rust. You still have a lot of the same faces there. I think the defense will probably look a bit better. You have Ryan Graves back there with an Erik Karlsson. You have Chris Letang with Marcus Pettersson. You kind of have a new look third pair where you see a guy like P.O. Joseph move on. The goaltending is more or less the same with Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic. I mean, I think they finished 10th or 11th in the East last year. I expect them to be somewhere in that realm again. Nothing they really did move the needle. The first summer of Kyle Dubas, he was very busy, and you kind of had some hope. I at least did. I think Michael Bunting, a full year among Michael Bunting, will help this team. His straight line speed certainly will, but nothing astronomical enough to move the needle for them. And I think they'll be right back in the lower end of the Eastern Conference.
It's an interesting conference to look at because even when you go to the bottom, like again, I don't think Montreal is going to be that good next year. They were a 76-point team. They wrote a ton of loser points. I think that balances out, but they'll win a few more games. They'll be right back in that range. I think Columbus, again, not a playoff team, but full season of Zach Werenski. You add Monahan. They're going to play the kids this year with Dean Evison. There should be less drama there. They should be a bit better than that. I think the East is just going to be random. I think there's going to be a lot of nights where, like, even a team like the Islanders, like I hate the Islanders, and you look at their forward group, and it's just like so painfully average looking. Everything they do is average, but they have Ilya Sorokin, so it's like, okay, they're going to win some. They're going to win some games. I think he'll be better than he was last year. I think the East is just going to be totally random. I think there's going to be 1-goal games that really swing things. Teams will go on 5-game heaters and 5-game losing streaks, and I really do think, man, like 1 through 16. I think it's going to be hard to predict. And if you want to talk betting too, I think it's going to be hard to predict and wager on the East from night to night because it's just mushy.
Well, guys, let me ask you this. When you look at the Eastern Conference, how many teams can you say with a shadow of a doubt are not going to have a sniff at the playoffs? I would say 2 or 3.
Yeah.
2. Yeah. I mean,
3.
Ottawa had 78 points last year. They're 3 back at Jersey. Like they should be, and they've all marked now. Like,
Columbus
I think it's 2.
Montreal
It's 2.
sure.
Yeah, it's 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
It's those 2. And specifically in the Atlantic Division, you have 7 of the 8 teams that want to be in the playoffs. Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, they all have been wanting to get over that hump for 2 seasons now. And the top 4 teams in that division with Florida, Tampa, Boston, Toronto, they're not going anywhere. And then you look at the Metro Division, I think you could say more teams like Columbus, Philadelphia, Washington, Pittsburgh likely are on the lower end. But then how many of those teams have a chance of it? Washington, Philly, and Pittsburgh have an outside chance of sneaking into a wild card spot, as opposed to when you look at the West, San Jose, Anaheim, you could write off right away. Utah will probably be better, but are they a slam dunk to be a playoff team? You look at the Chicago Blackhawks, they're probably not a playoff team. I just find that when you look at the West, you could write off 5 or 6 teams almost right off the bat, as opposed to in the East, you're looking at 2, maybe 3 that you could write off. And that's the difference, that you have more highly loaded teams or top loaded teams in the West, but there's that steep drop off. Like, when did the playoff race for the Western Conference end last year compared to the Eastern Conference?
Yeah. I mean, we knew it was, there's 3-4 weeks left in the season, and it was like, okay, St. Louis probably doesn't have a miracle in them. So
we kept pretending that St. Louis and Minnesota had a chance.
You kept
I kept pretending. I wanted to believe, but it's like a few years ago, right? When the East was basically shut down by Halloween.
January, yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the West then. Again, that divide was a big one between 8th and 9th, and then the rest of the conference below there. Do you give any one of St. Louis, Mini, Calgary, Utah, Arizona, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose, do you give any one of them a shot at getting in next year? Who is the best chance, I guess, of, I think it's taking over for LA, but taking over for someone?
I like what Utah did. I like the ads that they made on the blue line with Mikhail Sergachev and John Marino. That was the defenseman they got, right, of New Jersey, I believe it was. Yep. So I like that. You add some experience back there. We're going to see what Sergachev could do as an undisputed number 1 defenseman, pairing presumably with a Sean Durzi. I like their goaltending with Vejmelka. And I think they have a lot of players up front with untapped potential. Like, we know what Clayton Keller is capable of. We're going to see what Logan Cooley could do in a sophomore season. And I just think that Pacific Division, aside from the Golden Knights and the Oilers, is really wide open. Like, the Kings don't inspire me a whole lot. The Canucks, for me, I mean, from year to year, I don't know what kind of Canucks we're getting, a playoff team or a complete tire fire. I think Calgary is still going to be on the outside looking in. San Jose and Anaheim don't have a shot at it. So I think Utah, especially with a brand new ownership group who is not afraid to spend money. I actually like what Bill Armstrong and that hockey operations department has done since getting in charge there in 2020. I really think Utah has a chance here, not only with their offseason acquisitions, but what they could possibly do throughout the season with how much draft capital they could use as ammunition on the trade market. And just, I think they still have loads of cap space at their disposal. So I think Utah's in a really good spot here to sneak into that third spot in the Metro, because I do think in all likelihood, you'll probably see five teams making it out of the Central Division. Although you can never count out Vancouver, because I just really don't know what to expect from them year to year.
Yeah, that's fair. Outsider's perspective. Do you have another one? You have anything else from the West?
I was just going to say, I think Vancouver are this year's New Jersey Devils.
Thatcher Demko's not healthy already.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't even started the training camp and Thatcher Demko's hurt.
I just had that feeling about them.
Yeah. Fair. I want your outsider take on the Edmonton Oilers. They had a busy offseason. There are a lot of names out the door after coming within one win of a Stanley Cup. Coming in are guys like Arvidsson and Skinner. I don't think there's any questions about the top six. Blue line, maybe some question marks, but how do you view what the Oilers got up to this summer?
Well, I think they're the odds-on favorite at this point to be the Stanley Cup favorite going into the season. I mean, I think that they rightfully should be in that spot. You have the two best players in the world up front. I like the acquisitions of Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. I think those are the exact type of players that will flourish in a top six role, playing with the likes of McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Even the bottom six, like Podkolzin, is a very good shot on. I think that he has a lot of untapped potential, and it would not shock me at all if he finds a spot in the top six sooner rather than later. You still retain some veterans in that bottom six with Perry and Adam Henrique, Derek Ryan. You have some good role players, and I like keeping those guys because those are veterans who know their roles. I know a lot of people like to just litter prospects all over the lineup, but when you have veteran players who have played specific roles in deep playoff runs like the Oilers have in their bottom six, I think it's very important. They're not expecting anything more, and they're completely bought in. Obviously, the blue line is a bit of a red flag for me, but I really like that top pair of Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm. I think this is a season where we may see some Norris consideration for Evan Bouchard. I think he really came into his own last year. It was his first full season with Matthias Ekholm, right? So you have 18 months playing beside Matthias Ekholm. Darnell Nurse obviously will have a new partner this year. Is it going to be a Brett Kulak on the right side? I guess you guys could actually fill in that blank more. Who do you project to be his partner going into the season?
Troy Stetcher.
Yeah.
Troy Stetcher. So, well, you guys have some cap space, right? After losing out on Broberg and Holloway. So, I mean, maybe you could search for a guy like that on the trade market. So the blue line is certainly something that will have to be bolstered between now and the trade deadline. I'm sure Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman are completely aware of that need. And in goal, I mean, it worked last year with Skinner. Why not go back to the well? I mean, don't fix something that isn't broken, and it certainly isn't broken with Jeff Skinner and the goaltending outlook for the Edmonton Oilers. So I think right there with the Vegas Golden Knights, they're going to be jockeying for top position in the Pacific Division, and will likely be in the Western Conference Final.
Anthony, appreciate your time, man. Excited to have you over on Daily Faceoff. Excited to have you on the show throughout the year. So enjoy the rest of whatever's left of summer, and then we'll see you at the Christmas party.
Appreciate it, boys. Take it easy.
See you, Anthony. There you go. Anthony Dimarco. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.